Hi, welcome to Building SaaS with Python and Django. My name is Matt Lehman, and we are building a SaaS from scratch. This is part 5 of our journey building a service called Journey Inbox, which will be a journaling service that uses email as the primary mechanism for journaling. So we're going to continue on that project. As a reminder, every line of code written for this project will be streamed live and shared on YouTube. So you should, in theory, be able to follow the entire journey of building this product from scratch. The code is also available online at github.com/mblehman/journal, so you can follow along there too. The purpose of this stream is to walk you through how to build a software as a service. That's what SaaS stands for. And you're free to ask me anything about Python, Django, or web development. That's my reason for doing this, aside from building a product that I want to exist in the world. So we're going to get going. Last time I promised that we would work on the email portion of this. We did the core modeling of a journal entry, and now it's time to actually do something with it or attempt to. And since the interface for this application is going to be the sending and receiving of emails rather than going to a website primarily, we need to make email work. So we're going to start from the basis of sending email, the outbound stuff, and that's going to get us into configuring a mail setup, configuring to work with an ESP, an email service provider, and walk through the details of that. To be honest, I had a little bit of trouble getting signed up with a new SendGrid account, which is the ESP that we'll be using beforehand. So we may be using my ESP account that I'm using for my other SaaS project, which is School Desk, the other one that you go back in the archive of this stream, you'll find many episodes about. But that's okay. We should be able to make it work, and I will resolve the differences in the background if they have to change accounts or something. The concepts should be the same because we're going to use the same ESP vendor. So we have to send emails to users, and there's probably a bunch of ways to start with this, but let's think about the problem that's in front of us and work from what is the feature that I need to exist in the world, and then kind of work into that and into the details. And we'll see how to build everything out along the way. So sending email. When I'm going to send emails, there's a couple of different ways that you could do this in a system. One process would be to have some kind of background worker that is an always running process that has some kind of scheduling capability that can fire off background tasks at an interval of your choosing. I am not going to try and use a background worker process for this project because I don't think it's necessary. Instead, what I'm going to do is a design where we have a task. There's still going to be the notion of a task. And, oh, John, welcome. Good to see you. So we have a notion of a task, and I want it to run hourly. And the vendor that we'll be using as the place to host the application, which will be Heroku, has its own built-in scheduler where you can give it basically a script that you want to run and the time that you want to run it on, the cron time, and it will do that stuff. So we'll set up a scheduler task to run every hour, and then we'll write the code that needs to run every hour. So that's the way we're going to go about this. I noted here with a Django management command, I've actually changed my mind on how we're going to do that. I talked a little bit about this last week about tools that we can use from a package that we installed last time, and we'll make use of that this evening. So I think the thing we need to start with is that core executable thing that we're going to run. So for that, let's jump over to our trusty Django extensions project. We used this last week to see the graph of the models available for the project, but now we're going to use another feature that's in this. The Django extensions is just kind of this grab bag of useful features, and we're going to pick from one of those. So we're going to use this job scheduling feature, and what it does is it doesn't actually do the running and operation of these, but it gives you appropriate kind of hooks to hook into a command that can run at your frequency. So essentially you'd give it a job like hourly job, and you make a subclass of this thing, you write the necessary method that runs that, and then when you're ready to run it, you run a particular Django management command that you can see examples of these, and they tell you this is not running it for you. You have to hook it up into some kind of scheduler. The most basic way to do this would be to, if you had a server machine that is running cron, then you could put it into a cron tab entry which is cron's configuration file. And it would look something like this, where you have the hourly, and then you have manage.py, and then run jobs, and then the target, which would be hourly. So we should be able to test out this and see how it looks. We could test it out by running it directly, kind of off schedule, and that will require us, they'll probably run us into the email setup portion of this, and we'll see if we actually get an email somewhere. I'm not sure who I'm going to send the email to. Maybe there's a receipt box that we can do, or something along those lines. So let's get started. Go to the code, and I was looking at my other project to remind myself how to do this, but we'll get it going from scratch. So where's this going to happen from? I think this is a job, in my opinion, related to, well, actually, let me pause. Make sure that I'm putting the job in the right place. On one hand, you could make an argument that these are about entries. So we already have a Django app called Entries. That's what we created last time. So we've got these 3 different Django apps. And apps, as a reminder, are kind of like components within a Django project. We've got our Entries app, and we've got the core and accounts apps as well. So where should our job live? We could say that it would live in Entries, since most of the stuff will be about entries, and that might actually be the safest place to start. There's nothing that says that we couldn't move this in the future. So I think I'm going to go with that, rather than, because where my brain was going as an alternative is we could acknowledge that a lot of this system will be about mail, the sending and receiving of, but they're all going to be mail stuff that is related to journal entries. So Entries feels like a natural spot, from my point of view. So I need to create a file called jobs.py. It doesn't have to be called jobs.py, but I'm going to kind of conventionally use that. And I'm going to follow along. It's one of these things. I forget. Here it is. It's the Django extensions jobs package. That's where we need to import from. So the other thing that we'll do is I've saved this file. Let's go ahead and do some little bit of test-driven development too. We can probably test this out and actually test if it's going to be sending a mail, because the purpose of the sending is going to be look for every account that is active, and at that moment send the mail. This is actually going to be, I don't need an hourly job. Initially we'll do this as a once a day thing. So the very minimum viable product for this sending will be at a certain day. Nobody gets to choose the time. That can be something we do in the future, but let's say 6 a.m. East Coast time, we send out an email that everybody's going to receive about, okay, it's your day, here's your prompt, and here's something to respond to. So that's my thinking on it right now. So let's create ourselves a file. We're in the entries test directory here. Let's create test jobs.py and save that. And let's make a class for this job. So this will be the, what should we call this thing? Send mail? Send mail job? Should we name it with job? Maybe. That would kind of be representative here. Sure, let's call it that. So we're going to be, so this is our test for that though. So we'll call this test send mail job. And the ultimate thing that we want out of this, so the happy path is sends an email for active account. So test send email. And we'll give ourselves a useful doc string to remind us of what this thing's going to be about. So we'll say an active account receives an email email prompt. John, your question is noted. It is a good one. So why not incorporate time zone so that it can be 6 a.m. of the client time zone? Again, that's absolutely a good feature. You know what? In fact, I hear you, and let's record it. So there should be stuff. I think it makes sense to send there's two dimensions of this. Like, it doesn't need to be anchored to the fact that I'm in Eastern time, so therefore you must all deal with my time zone. That's a stupid view of the world. But it also could be more in that you may not want to receive it in the morning. Maybe you're an inbox, almost obsessive compulsive with your inbox 0. And if you received it at 6 a.m. but you're not supposed to respond to it till after your day is over, that might drive you crazy. So I can understand wanting to have it be configurable times. So there's actually like two different things there of making the app kind of time zone aware, which is one thing, and then also sending it at the hour of your choosing. So I think the time zone awareness portion is something that we could build into the UI of like a settings page that would come later. So I think a first step, let's record this as a first step. So make a user preference to pick the time zone when the email is sent. Hopefully that makes sense. That's one thing. And then another thing that we want is make preference page time zone aware. Because from the sending point of view, if we store the hour, that we'll store that in UTC in the back end, and then whenever the code is running, it'll look at like what's set for the hour I'm in right now. So the code shouldn't be messing around with different time zones. But from the user experience point of view, when you're actually setting that page, you'll want to see it in your own time. So I think that would be useful. So thanks for the suggestion. We'll definitely incorporate it, but just not today. We'll work on email today, if that makes sense. Okay, so an active account receives an email prompt. That's the thing we want to do. We need to create the job, and so that's going to be the send mail job. I don't think, let's go take a look at that package. I don't think that the creation of these classes requires any particular where'd it go? Daily job in this package? Oh, come on. Sorry, y'all. Where's daily job? The thing we need to import. Where are you? I thought you'd be right in jobs package, but so that's over in management. That's not where I expected it to be. Did it say it was in management? Oh, some simple examples. I didn't read the docs. That's my fault. Okay. So we can get our base job, daily job, and so you can see what it does. It's like it's setting the when, and so that when we run our management command, anything that matches that when will do that. So we need to import from a different spot. But really, what I wanted to find was base job, and base job doesn't have an init. All it has is an execute method. So there's really not a lot to this. So we can set, looks like we can set the help. We'll get the when for free when we derive from daily job, and then we need to add execute. Those are the only few attributes that are required here. So we'll say sent mail job, and then job execute. Doesn't take any arguments. And then we need to do some kind of assertion here. Assert that, well, there's I think there's an out box. So we'll do that in a little bit. And it's telling me this is a method. Okay. Okay. So from journal entries jobs import it's not sent mail, send mail job. Make it active. Send mail job. Okay, and then we'll come over here, we'll say class send mail job. That's going to be derived from that daily job, which we'll do just a pass for the moment. We need to import that. So Django, where was this? Django extensions management, jobs, import, daily job. Okay. And we can say, we'll give it the help of send mail to all active, well, let's just say active accounts. Because in that future state where it's based on the hour, it may not be all the active accounts every time it runs. Sam, hello, welcome. We're working on sending email tonight. I'm going to configure email after this, mess around with some SendGrid stuff. Glad you could join in for the evening. So we run the test. There's no assertions yet. But it's already failing because it recognizes that execute is a method on the superclass, but it's a method that has a not implemented error exception, showing that we need to implement it. So we can fix that by saying execute, and again, that's going to take a self argument, and for the moment we put a pass here. So that should make the test pass, but it doesn't do anything yet. Okay, so let's think about what other test data do we need here. We need an account. And there's just some questions here about, we can take a naive view of this initially. And there's some, maybe let's look at our issues list. I don't know if I don't remember if I recorded this or not. I did not. So let's record an issue that's on my mind right now of email send tracking. Because there's an aspect of this of, I only want to send you one email a day. And this comes up if, like, let's say we do have that time zone feature in the future. And you move your time zone from one time to the other. And so it's possible that I could miss the app. The app could miss sending it to you because you changed your time zone from that to that. And it was in the direction that would, like, it's already passed. Like you changed it to earlier in the day, but it's after that point in the day and it hadn't been set yet. So hopefully that makes sense. In that scenario, we still want to make sure that for the overall 24-hour period that you got your email for that day. Or if maybe there was a sending failure, there's all sorts of reasons that might happen. So we want to track that eventually to kind of guarantee some consistency for the account holders. But I think, again, this is an addition that is a fault tolerance. It's a good thing to have, but I don't think if we're trying to get to, like, what is the very bare minimum that I can do to get you something that will work most of the time, that this level of tracking is not going to be needed. So I'll record it as a future feature. This is, so I'll say improve fault tolerance by ensuring that emails actually get sent. I don't know. Especially during business travel. I suppose that could factor in. There's going to be some weird edge cases here where it will be a best effort. So if you're, like, traveling from, I don't know, United States to Japan, and you're crossing that time, so you are a different date, like, it's going to be, because I'm not going to know where you are in the world at any moment. It's going to be based off of the preference that you set. So let's say you're doing a massive travel to the other part of the world. I'm still not going to know your location, so I'm going to have to do it of, you told me to send it at 9 p.m. Mountain Time, so I'm going to send it at 9 p.m. Mountain Time. So that's how I think about that. But still, the point is we should still track it later. Okay, so we've got the very basics of, we're not going to do any email tracking. There's no extra records here to keep accounting of, but we do need to send it for an active user. Now, here's the question. Maybe there's a more primitive question here that we need to get to, because we haven't really set up the notion of an account yet, right? So we might be backing up into, I thought we were going to do email today, but we're not actually going to be able to get to it, because if we go to the Accounts app, we have our user, but we haven't set up anything related to what's an account? What is an active account? Is that something that, so there's one philosophy that says we could attach this to the user model, the status of the account. I don't know that I really love that, because again, or maybe as a reminder for folks, I think of the user more as a tool for helping you authenticate. It's like the thing that Django wants to associate with sessions and all of that stuff. Jeffrey B, you managed to catch a live session. Welcome. Yeah, ask any questions you got about Django. That's what I'm here for. We're working on sending some email right now. So I think what we need to do is basically address this portion of the documentation string. We need to, because I need to be able to set up as some test data. I want to essentially have a user here, but every user needs an account. So I want to be able to say something like user factory. And by default, I would assume, actually that wouldn't be a fair assumption. We can have something like, we can get a real account. We'll set that up. I'm thinking too far ahead, too many steps ahead. But we need some kind of user, and then when we call execute, the database would be empty at this point, and so it's just going to blindly send when it can, and we'll try to send, send an email for that active user, and then we could assert that the email is actually sent to that user's fake email address, and we could verify that that's what we would assert on in the end. All right, so, but we're not ready to do that. I'm going to restart my LSP here so that stops complaining in my editor. Let's close that test for now, and let's stare at this for a second. So now we're in the Accounts app. We're shifting gears. So I didn't think I was switching to this, but we are. Do I have an issue for this? That's auth, email, webhook, blah, 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 blah. Stripe integration. Okay, I don't think I have one for this either. Fine, time to go with that. Create account model. Now let's go peek at what I did with School Desk for a minute, because there's a lot, I mean, frankly, there's a lot that's going to be similar to that, and I don't want to reinvent the wheel here, so there's probably some stuff that we can learn. So here's the School Desk app, which is my other SaaS app that we've done on many streams, and we can go over to the Accounts Model section and see what's kind of stuff is here. So here are some states that I have, and even some state transitions. And then I've got all of this kind of active statuses. Okay, so there's multiple layers here, because at some point, you know, I want to be a user of this app, but I don't want to pay for an app that I'm already paying for as the host. So I would mark myself as exempt, and then we have these other active statuses. So we can have some state here, and then we would have a foreign key to the user. Makes sense. And a status field. Whoops. All right, and then we've got history. Ooh, that's a good idea. I've got some good ideas here that I should keep monitoring. What is this history thing? This would be a cool addition as well that I think would be worth it. Again, I don't know if this is needed right out of the gate, so it might just be we need this pre-launch. Ooh, that's a good label that we should start using. So it's not pre-launch, it's pre-production deploy. So there are things that are going to be a pain after I have deployed to Heroku for the first time and made the service available. In theory, I could deploy to production and then be working on something and then like just take the database down and then redeploy with some updates to the modeling. But that would be kind of a mess. Don't really want to do that. So I want to have some kind of label to note that inflection point in time of anything before this should happen. Otherwise, it's going to be really hard and annoying to do after that. So I'm going to make another issue. I'm making more issues than I am doing code right now. So all these thoughts are coming to me. But so apologies for seeing less of that. But these are all the aspects that we'll have to consider ultimately. So let's mark this as account history, because I don't want to get too off track today from the. I would love to end the stream to have like actually sending emails with a real configuration. So let's say add Django simple history. Although there was one that I saw somebody mention or as an alternative. Is there a more popular alternative that I should investigate to the account model to track state transitions? So essentially I want to know, like, when did you go from your trial was running to you went to active? Again, I'm not doing this, I keep saying again, but this is me thinking back to previous streams. I'm not doing this because I'm like some analyst that wants to creep on you, that like is really interested in all your details. I want to be able to have some basic notions of what was the history of this account, when did it close. So that's what I'm thinking with this stuff. All right, Jeffrey, let me answer your question here. I see your comment. Is there an episode where you discuss your workflow and process approach? I don't think I try and get to the code with basically every episode, so I don't ever know that I ever get purely philosophical on my approach. So you're kind of seeing my process in action. And yeah, as to John's point, it's all instructional. Just playing it, winging it, and y'all are along for the ride. This I have found, I have mentioned in the past that I use GitHub Issues primarily because it's a tool that's right here. It's very accessible. Like, you can easily create a GitHub account, which is most likely the place where you'd store your code. So if I can work in a tool that is a very low barrier for others, then anything that I describe in that tool will equip you to become better with said tool. So anyway, as an example, let's talk about, this is going to be a new label. This is going to be, what I say, prod deploy. I don't know. Probably okay as label. Ooh, it's a hideous color. That's okay. Let's go purple. All right, so we've got our pre-prod deploy. Those are things, and I can come back through. There's probably a few of these that I really want to make sure happen. Like, I think we can get away with not doing email tracking pre-prod. What's going to be absolutely critical that would be super painful if we didn't do it later? I think the things in here are, can I do this? Can I set a label from a checkbox? That's a filter. I know. I don't think so. Shoot. Mark as, nope. Bummer. Okay, so don't go making a bunch of checks. There were other things, but they're not really coming to me. And some of these are so obvious, like we can't go live without having some of these things working. So, okay. I'll just do it for now as a flash to myself in the future. Before we get to that step, we can just scan through this, be like, oh yeah, don't forget that thing. So let's make our account. We've got the account and account status. I'm going to make a change the way this is done based on my experience here. This was kind of annoying. So I added this thing as a nested class because sometimes in templates and other things, you want to be able to know what are the available statuses. And if you do this as, like, let's say I had something like all of these statuses and I had them up here outside of the model class. That seems like a good thing at first. Like, oh, it's separating this is a status and this is the account, and like that's great. Why wouldn't you do that? The downside of this approach is when it comes to templates. So let's say I'm in a template and I want to check in my template, is this account, this user account, is it in the active status? So I can get the status attribute from this field that's listed here, but then how do I get the fact that it's a number? Like, would I have to just write down a 4? Really, what I want to say is that it's active. So by having this nested class, I can then, within my template, something like say something like user.account.status equal user account status with a capital S dot active. This will be more clear when we get to some code later, but just acknowledge for now that, or recognize that this is going to be useful to have this nested. So let's do that. All right, so I've reminded myself of this stuff. I think what I'm going to go with is we need, at the very least, a trialing and active to start, and then we can flesh it out with more statuses in the future. I think it starts with trialing. Yep. Okay. So we have enough to go on here. Let's put up a new class here. Let's also, while we're here, get accounts test models and have them side by side. 10 observers, cool. Welcome to all of you. Some of you are not asking any questions. That's cool. If you are joining us for the first time, we're working on a new SaaS project. I'm working on the account for that SaaS, and every line of code for this project is going to be written here. So why not store the status list on its own model? It can be a foreign key to the user model and will make editing status easier. Status, so have a separate model? You can make it, I see. I think I do that because we're doing that. That's an interesting question, Sam. I think that approach could, if you want to do that, totally cool. The downside, or a downside to me for that approach, is that anytime I'd want to interact with that model, I'd have to query that other database table just to get the list of statuses, which to me feel like constants and configuration. And there's also, I have some worry of, like, if those statuses were in rows in a database, let's say I went in and accidentally deleted the active status, like if I put that as a row in a database, that's my thinking on it. Like, so what you're doing makes perfect sense. You could totally have it as a foreign key and then compare it to different rows. So there's a bit more of a data-centric approach. But this is an approach that I prefer. I also think that that would be what you're describing would work, but I wonder if it fights a little bit against Django's ethos. In that, like, let's look back at this example. The integer choices, this thing up here, this idea of having choices is very common in Django parlance, and this is a newer. This integer choices thing is newer, but the notion of having choices that you attach as foreign keys to certain fields is extremely common. So it's all on your preference there, but that's the way I'm thinking about it in this context. So again, we want to test a factory, and I want to test the factory that I want to exist in the world. So I want to have an account, and this will be an account factory. Now, reality is we will probably rarely use this factory, because one of the things that we're going to do is add a post, connect to a signal, which is the post create signal. So when you log in and you sign up for the site for the first time, you're going to get a user record, but we immediately, in the same transaction, or maybe not quite the same transaction, but very quickly after, want to create an account record for you that says what is the status of your account. So we can do that with a signal to kind of make sure that those two things happen basically as close together as possible. And by doing that, most of the time when we create a user factory here, it's going to fire the post create signal, which will create an account. That'll be a little finicky for if we want to influence the state of that account, which might make some of our initial tests for some of these things annoying. But I think there are ways around that. So we've got our account, and we want to assert that the account is not none. Okay, there is no such factory right now, so let's go add the account factory. My editor is going to complain that doesn't exist, and it should complain because it doesn't exist. We go to our accounts factories here, and now we can create the new factory. Account factory is a factory Django model factory. What's going on? Django model factory. And the class meta needs to point to a model, which will be the account model. Okay, so that's enough for the factory point of view, at least to start. Might be some funny ordering stuff there in a minute. We'll see. Oh, actually, there won't be. Never mind. We'll see how to make that work. So let's go down here, and the test is going to fail because we don't have the model yet. No surprise there. So now it's time. This is our first use of a regular model instead of using abstract user. So we need to do from Django DB import models where the models package lives. And then here we can do class account will derive from models.model. That'll be our new database table. And we do, so why does the account exist? The account is for, account holds the users, this is terrible. Terrible docstring. Let's think about this in a minute. I'm going to write this and then we'll wordsmith it. I could say account state, but that's so dumb. Holds the user's account state, and it also will be, and like linkages out to Stripe. So the user's status and payment gateway. No. Okay, I'm overthinking this. Let's just keep it like really crappy for now. If y'all have a better way to talk about an account, all ears. So this will give us at least a model to work from, and we should be able to test this, and that should pass. Okay, but I want to assert that there is a user connected to this. So let's assert that account user is not none. And that's not going to work because we don't have a user yet. So we need to come over here and say that the user is, let's go use the entry. We have the same, basically the same thing from the entry model. Let's go use that. It's exactly the same. Well, not quite. Actually, it may not be the same. Let's think. This is an account user, but I don't know that we want a foreign key. A foreign key could be, if we did a foreign key, it would basically say that a user could have multiple accounts. Because if you think about what is a foreign key, it's a column in a database that stores an identifier to another table. So if you had a foreign key, then you could have user 1 for many, many accounts, and then there'd be multiple accounts. We don't really want that though. So there's a way to restrict that. And let's go to the Django documentation to look at that. And most of you, good chunk of you may already know what I'm talking about. For those that don't, I want to show it. So let's find foreign key. I could make it, you're right, Sam, I could make it unique to force that, but there's a more, like in Django, I think there's a more semantically unique or semantically accurate way to represent that, which you got it, John. It's one-to-one. One-to-one. Okay, let's read about this for a minute. So a one-to-one relationship, this is, there you go. Hey, y'all are both right. Conceptually, this is similar to a foreign key with unique equal true. But the reverse side, here's the big thing. The reverse side of the relationship will return a single object, excuse me. So that's key. So where I have right now, let's get rid of, before I edit that by mistake. So in the entry model, we want to be able to go from the user and say, give me all your entries, and use a related manager. So that would be user.entries.all to get all of those entries. And then you could filter that as you wish. But in this situation, we only ever want the user to have access to a single account. So we would prefer to be able to do something like user.account. And that is what the one-to-one field can do, is it adds at a code level that ability. So we would say, change this to one-to-one field, and then we can delete related name. I think that gives us what we're looking for. Let's read through this just to make sure that I've understood all the implications of this. I'm pretty sure I have, but it's good to check as a reminder. So the most useful is a primary key of a model which extends another model in some way. Yep. One positional argument is required, which we've already got. If you do not specify the related name, Django will use the lowercase name of the current model as a default value. So we'll get user.account, which is exactly what we want. But here's an example of where you can use it to be something different. A related object does not exist exception is raised when accessing the reverse relationship if the entry in the related table does not exist. But as I mentioned, we're going to use a signal that will automatically create it, and we're never going to delete one versus the other. And we have this set up so that it will cascade, so that if the user is deleted, the account will get deleted with it. So that's all good. So I think everything about that makes me comfortable reading through these little details here. Parent link, when true. Okay, I don't think we need this. So we've got this new field here, but if we run our test now, it's going to fail because why? It's going to say the unique constraint is not there. That's not too surprising. That's because we didn't put it in our factory. And just like our entry factory, we actually can probably steal from that. Entry factories. We can take this. So we want to use the sub factory command to produce a user that matches up with this. Like so. Now if we do that, test should pass. Okay, we want one other thing here. And the thing I want to consider, well, what's the thing we want? We want status. We want to be tracking the status of the account. So that's the thing that we're going to put here. And we'll use an integer field to do that because it's a nice, cheap, easy way, because we can very easily with Django represent integers in a very semantic way using the integer choices thing that you saw from the homeschool app a moment ago. So the difference is that I'm not going to call this account status because I frankly got tired of typing account. It would be something like in my templates in my other app would be user.account.account status, then the status. So that was annoying. So we'll just call this nested class status, and we will use models.integer choices. And then I think you just give it the status as you want. So the first one will be trialing. So that's when you first sign up. That's naturally where we're going to be. And then if you're not trialing and you didn't end your trial and you actually signed up, I'm going to switch the account to an active state. Active states, those and trialing are going to be the ones that will receive email. So we will want to group those a little later, but we don't need those quite yet. But these two bits of information, I think, are all that we need, and I think that's the right representation. Let's just quick, yeah. Okay, that's the right format. And then I'm using capitalization here as a way to signal their kind of constants. So finally, we want to take status, and that's going to be a new field of models, integer choices. Oh, not integer choices, excuse me, integer field. And I think we need a default and the choices. Yep, choices, default. We also want to index this. Yeah, absolutely. So let's do choices equal status choices. And then default, we want it to be, and we can write a test for this, I suppose. Yeah, I will get to the exempt and canceled stuff. I don't know if yeah, maybe I should just go ahead and put in the statuses that I know should exist in the world. Because there's cancel, like you're not coming back, but I also wanted to tease out that a trial is expired, because I initially had I had everything go to canceled, and then trial expired. I wanted to see who tried it and then active, or who maybe was active once upon a time and then canceled, and then who just fell through the bottom of the funnel and they let themselves expire. And then did I spell canceled wrong? I think it was one of those weird words that I'm not sure if it's 2 L's or 3. Canceled. See, there's canceled or canceled. American. Yeah, this is the one where I'm like, really? I don't know that I agree with this. I'm an American, and this looks wrong to me somehow. So maybe I'm whatever. That's my view on it. I think I went with the American just in case I don't know. I don't know why I went with it. All right, so let's put a couple extra in, sure, for completeness. We'll put in canceled. I'll continue to spell it the American way. I spell color the American way, so consistency is good, I suppose. And then we'll have one final thing for expired. So canceled and expired are meant to be kind of terminal states, and trialing and active are meant to be active states. And then, well, since we're here, I know that there's going to be me. And so that's the exempt state. So let's just renumber all these. Oops. I'm debating if I want like a beta period and have some beta users. We'll see. Okay, so status, the default is going to be trialing. And then, as I said, we want to put an index on this. All right, so I probably should comment on this if you are not used to database design. Why is that failing? One moment. Did I do that wrong? Default trialing. What? What am I doing wrong, y'all? Argument of type literal static. What's the error message? Cannot be assigned to type not provided. I don't even think I've hooked in my pie yet. What is complaining? What if I say you're an int? Will you be happier? No, you're angry. Interesting. I think that's coming from my Python LSP, and it doesn't know how to interpret this. But I don't understand why this one over here, well, I'm not getting anything from this one. Maybe it's just that one's not running it over there. Okay, sorry, I'm getting distracted. Let's get back to this aspect here. So we want a DB index on this because we want to be able to avoid that there's going to become let's say that the app becomes wildly popular or wildly popular to trial. People try it out constantly, but a lot of people are falling through the funnel. So the table is growing with the number of accounts that are in the system, but most of them end up being in trial expired because they just it wasn't a fit for them. That's fine. No ill will there, but that's just how it is. We want to be able to do fast queries on the database. And so by specifying a database index for things that you know you're going to filter a lot on, it allows the database to set up extra information, which is called an index, that creates faster lookups, essentially. Under the covers, that does some fancy stuff with binary trees and all sorts of different kinds of trees to make that go faster, to do those lookups quickly. But that's an implementation detail of the database. What you are likely want to know is when you are running these filters constantly, this is going to be the thing that bites a lot of people in terms of performance, where they write where clauses, which is what the filter method on the Django ORM uses, and they don't have indexed fields. If you don't have an indexed field, what that means is that because you've incorporated something into your where clause, the database is required to scan every line, every row in the database table. That's called a table scan, and it is bad, especially as you get into a table that has millions of records. So a database index, by being part of a binary tree or some kind of structure like that, changes the number of accesses from a linear scan of having to look at the whole thing to a logarithmic scan. Think of it as like looking into a dictionary, and the way you look up a word in a dictionary is by every time splitting in half and getting closer to the word you're looking for by always splitting in half. If you do that, I want to say it's something like an average of 7 splits or something like that before you're going to find the page that has the word on it. And that's the power of logarithmic searching. Linear searching is going through every single page in a dictionary until you get to the word. And if your word is in the Z's or Z's for you, my Canadian brethren out there, then that's going to be really slow. So yeah, indexes are super useful. That's what we're doing this year. All right, so we've got this. It's going to default to trialing, and we can test that in our test over here. So we can say, now, this is actually a good example where we'll be able to use that status nested class. So we can assert that the account status is equal to, we don't want to do is here because we're not comparing against none, but it's equal to the account, and we're going to access the nested class using capital status, like so, and saying trialing. That should work. Things up, although I feel like something is up because it seems angry at me. Am I doing? No, I'm doing it right. My editor is just wrong. You're wrong, editor. Let me see if I can restart my LSP if that'll fix it. Nope, it just doesn't know what to do with those. So this is an example where Django is a very, in many ways, a very dynamic. It uses a lot of the dynamic aspects of Python. These fields, the things that you see on the right-hand side of these class attributes, like one-to-one field and integer field, are using a feature of Python called descriptors. And descriptors have their own characteristics and their own life cycle. So what effectively happens is when you get an instance over here, this, by the time you are at status, this will be an integer when you're interacting with it on a particular record. But it's not over here. It's actually this integer field type. And that mismatch is confusing the LSP. There are tools that try to fix this. There are some MyPy related tools that would try to help, but I don't feel like integrating those right now. So even though we were getting some kind of red angry warnings here, the LSP is wrong. So LSPs can be wrong, especially for a language that is dynamic as Python, that is designed to do things that strongly typed languages are not well suited for. Which is why you got to write a lot of tests. So that's the trade-off. You got to test your code heavily in more dynamically typed languages, but you get some really powerful flexibility. So we now have our account. It's in a trialing thing as by default. Although I actually want to, I think what I want to do is set that differently. I think what I'd rather have is the status be set to the active state, because most of the tests that we're going to write are, I want to be using an active user. I don't want to be dealing with somebody who's in a trialing state, I think. Maybe I'm overthinking that too. Like, it's probably okay. The trialing behavior is going to be virtually the same as active. So maybe it's fine. Let's just leave it as is for now. All right. So after all of this, we have our new account model. It's got these set of states here. The one I did leave off for now is any like beta group. If we want to do beta stuff, we can talk about that later, but I'm not going to consider that for the moment. So we have a user and status. There is one more thing that we need to do, and that is to make sure, well, like let's do, watch this. This should fail. So if we assert that the user account is not none, I think we're going to get an exception here. Yeah. So we get a related object does not exist because the user has no account. So this is that warning that the Django documentation was telling us about. So with the fact that just the fact that we tried to access the account attribute on the user triggered that database query and caused it to say like, okay, let me go look up the account and pull that in and get that query going too. And it wasn't there. So we need to hook up something else to make sure that it is there all the time. So I want to actually be able to leave this in and have our user factory just have this work by default. So let's go, in fact, let's go steal some code here. And there's no reason, this is a totally legit chunk of code to take. So we'll come over here and we will go to, we're done with that factory. At the end of this, after the user is called, we can now paste in this chunk of code and we'll review it here and also bring in the necessary imports. No code actions. So there are signals in Django, and signals are designed to run, they're like hooks in the Python system. So when Django runs some stuff at various points in its execution, it will call out to a signal. And they're well-named signals. This one is post save. And post save is what it sounds like. It's right after save has happened, Django will call the signal, and other things can register for those signals as a receiver. So if you have registered with a signal, then what will happen is whatever function you registered will get called at that point in time. It's very important. These are not asynchronous things. They happen synchronously with the execution. So you have to be careful with signals. They can cause a bunch of weird behavior if you have too many of them and they start interacting in weird ways, but they can be used at appropriate times to great effect. So this is the point at which we're kind of hooking into the internals of Django's guts and saying, you just saved that thing, now immediately go do this other thing because it's important that you do it right now. So that's what this hook is for. So these are all, each different signal has its own arguments that it will pass in to the signal function. Those are defined in the documentation. I already have them here, so I don't need to go look them up here. So we've got the sender itself, which is going to be, that would be the instance of the user. Or no, that would be, I don't know what that would be because it's not, here's the instance right here as the second argument. So to be honest, I don't really know what type this would be, but I guess we don't really need to know right now. And then it's the post save signal is going to pass in a created Boolean attribute as well. So if this is the first time that this thing is created, which is important to measure because we don't want to be attempting to create multiple accounts, then we go ahead and use account.objectsCreate, and then we set the user equal to the instance, which is the instance of a user record. So in order to make this work, though, we need to bring in 2 imports. Those are in the signals package. I don't remember exactly where. I think it's from Django. Oh, shoot. Dispatch? Dispatch? No. All right, let's go look it up. It's right at the top of this file. Oh, I had it ever right. From Django dispatch, import receiver. So that's where that decorator comes from. And then we need to import the named signal, which is coming from the database models section. So there's a signals module over there. So from Django DB models signals import post save. Now here's a case where I don't remember if this account factory is now going to blow up, because there's a potential chicken and egg that's happening here, where, think about this. The account factory, we did not provide a user. So it's going to go to the sub factory and it's going to try and create a user. The user class is going to create a record and then it's going to call save at some point. So in theory, this create account thing will then be called. Not in theory, I'm pretty sure this was going to happen. This will be a created type and it will try and create an account record again. But then we're going to run into that uniqueness constraint, and because we'll have two accounts. So we might need to mute the signals for this in order to make this work. So I have a feeling we probably fixed this factory, but we broke this one, is my guess. Yeah. I'm glad my knowledge is working out here. John, I'm looking at your question. Are you going to rely on the fact that an account cannot have a duplicate name because it is created from the user? You set username as unique. Yes. Yeah. So the uniqueness will come from the fact that the email is going to be used to derive the username, and that username is the unique field on the user model, I believe. So yeah, that's how accounts will be kept track as unique. You're correct. All right, so now we have this problem, like I said, where we've got this signal is firing when we call account factory. So let's go back to Factory Boy, and we need to look at muting. It's a good feature to be aware of if you decide to use Factory Boy, and if you're making a Django project and you're doing testing, I absolutely recommend it because it's a great tool. So we want to look for muting signals. So here we go. We've got factory.django.mute signals, and looks like we can mute this for. This might be the best way to go about this, actually. Rather than put it on this one test, we can say anytime you're creating an account, let's just assume that you're doing it for a very specific purpose. Most of the time I will be using user factory, so it's really only going to apply for the account factory. So let's go over to here, and we need to be able to bring in the post save signal as well. So we need to put from Django, what was it, DB models signals import post save. And then we can add as a decorator factory.django.mute signals, and we can put post save on top of it. So I've not used this feature before. Hopefully it works as advertised. So let's run this test again, and now we have a passing test. Great. So the outcome of all this, we now have an account that has a default trialing status. That's a test we should probably write. Well, I guess we get that with the assertion on the test factory. That's okay. It will be automatically created when the user signs up, because that user is automatically created. And it will be set to the right state. And so we should be ready to go there. To continue this, finish this piece off. Did I even write the issue for this? Yeah, 28. We also need to make a migration. So let's do that. Make migrations and create the account model. This is one of those scenarios where I could, if I wanted to, go back and destroy the initial model and just have both user and account be created in one migration. I don't think there's a lot of benefit to doing that really in this circumstance. So I'm going to keep it as is. We'll just have this be a secondary migration. I will come in here though and save it so that it will format with black formatting automatically. And I'm a little surprised, honestly, that I thought something changed about Django so that it would automatically format migrations in the black style if it was available, but it doesn't seem to be going that way. So I'm not sure what's going on there. And we can see it's got the ID field, the status field, and the user field. That's it. All right, so let's commit this stuff and then get back to the job now that we have our account object. So we can take a quick, I want to do a quick review. I like to look over the code, make sure that I didn't leave in any to-dos or prints that I didn't want in there, although this was a pretty straightforward example. So here's our model. There's the account. It still has a terrible documentation string, but we'll live with that for now. It's got the one-to-one field on the user, the integer field on the status with the DB index of true. That's important. It's got the signal hook. We've got the factory, the new test case. We updated the test. And I guess I probably should have left off the jobs. Let's actually, let's not commit that because they're definitely separate things. Yeah, I don't want to commit that yet. So let's do, I put all of that in the journal entry. So let's do git restore staged journal entries. So status wise, that separates the account change from the jobs change. Commit all of that, and we'll say add count model, and that fixes number 28. Okay, I think we're ready to return to our job scenario from earlier. We've got the job. Let's get the job test case. Job test, and rotate those. I like the test on the other side, I think. So we should be able to, without doing anything else, actually see this job. I've said earlier that this is going to integrate with the Django extension stuff. So if we run manage help, you'll see all these commands that come with Django extensions. And one of them is run, well, there's run job and run jobs. So you can do it by name, or you can do it by the type, as we said. So we should be able to do run jobs and look at the help, and it's going to give you the instructions for how to do this. So you have -list, and then you can set as the positional argument. So all of these are flags except for this last one here, which is hard to see, but it says when. So it does describe it here though. That's good. So let's do manage run jobs, and let's say --list. Oh boo. That did not work as planned. Journal entry jobs has no attribute path. Did you mean name? Is this a bug? This might be a bug that I introduced. I tried to fix something here, and I think it might have broken. There was a deprecation warning with module importing, and I thought I fixed it. Okay, let's go look at the open source package. Let's see if it is me, or if somebody reverted it, or if something else happened. So this is happening in Django extension management jobs. Oh, I was just in that file. So management jobs, and then we get to line 83. And the reason it happened is because, yeah, this looks like code I would have written. 83 module path 0. What am I trying to say? There was this code used to use a different import mechanism that was like deprecated in a more recent version of Python. So it was throwing a warning whenever it was running, and I tried to fix the warning. So I think this might be my fault, y'all. But let's go look at the blame. Let's see if we can blame me. Line 83. Yeah, that's me. All right, so perhaps I need to fix this code. Let's go look at the change. Path is a better choice than file. What was the rationale here? What would happen if there happens to be a file, not a module, named jobs in the app's root directory? By doing this, you're closing the door to apps doing this way. Yeah, so this is somebody else's comment. I definitely did break somebody's workflow. Sorry about that, Jason. Trying to do the right thing, I promise. But it seems I've broken my own workflow. And that's the confusing part. So what happened here? Journal entries jobs has no attribute path. Did you mean name? This was supposed to list out the name of the job. And we have definitely found it. So it's this file right here. It's in a package. What's going on? Let's go debug. And maybe I can actually fix my mistake and make people happy. Because I would think that should work, but it didn't. This gets down to how jobs are loaded in, pretty sure. So we are around find the job module. So we have app name, and the when is going to be none here, because we're using list. We're doing app name split on the dot, append jobs, module name. All right, let's look at what did I make my other changes? It seems to be two separate changes. So here's where I tried to correct the imp. This is the piece that was deprecated. So I tried to switch to import lib, which should be the preferred way when you go read the documentation of rather doing this stuff. I tried to make something that was reflective of that. There was, what am I trying to say? There were tests for this code within the package too. So that's why I thought I had this with some amount of confidence. And it looks like the other bit that I had was a one-line change. We changed from using .file. What did I say here? Let's go look at the PR. Oh, it's two different commits. Somebody's unhappy, somebody's happy. Wait, it's the same person. Olgans. I don't know if they're happy or unhappy. But here's the full context. Import module, find module. Saw that there was test coverage. What I don't understand in this context is what's going on with this module. So this is going to be an example where perhaps the best way to go about this, or a way, I don't know if it's best, you can be the judge of that, is let's go into the virtual environment and go to lib and go into site packages and go to Django extensions. And this is management. Right, yep. Then we can open up the jobs file. Come down to the line, which was 83. And let's print out some of the stuff here. So let's print out print module name. And this, I guess this is meant to, the reason we're here is because I created this bug, so I'm trying to feel some kind of semblance to fix it if I can. But also, this might be in the way of what we're trying to do. I don't know, maybe it will work without this, but I'm surprised. There's something else going on here that I don't quite understand. So we can print the module, and then maybe we can also print the dir of the module to see all the attributes of it. Because what I don't understand is, why does this module not have a path attribute? That doesn't make any sense to me. Whoops. I don't want to do black formatting on this file. I want to make just my little print modifications. So now if we come back here and run this again, we can see what it was trying to load. So it's essentially going through everything, looking for everything that could be potentially a location of jobs. So it's running through all of the installed applications for my project, just running down them in order. I'm sure if we brought up the settings file, you would see well, this might be alpha sorted actually, so it might not be the same exact order, but it's pretty close. And it's attempting to do jobs, you know, all of these variants, and trying to import them all, just in the mission of finding jobs. So we get to, here's some examples of it found some, and it says, and it finds all of these things. And this is what's confusing me, is that, look, here is an example of Django extension.jobs, and it has the fields that it was looking for, namely this path field. So what is it about my scenario where it's saying I cannot find this path attribute? Because we're going to get to it later when it gets to here, gets to jobs, and there's no path attribute. Why? That's what I don't get. Because we've got, this is a module journal entry jobs. It has a reasonable path. This is a module Django extensions jobs, has a reasonable path, although it's way deep in here. I was about to say I think I had it, but maybe I don't. Oh, I think I have it now. And I think I know what the difference is. I created a jobs module, and I think I might finally understand that person's comment on the blame. So if we go back to, where was it? Sorry. Let's go back to this. Now I understand. I didn't understand his comment initially, so maybe there's something worth it of this could be one or the other thing. So there's probably a has adder check that belongs here. What would happen if there happens to be a file, not a module? That's key, because I've done this now. I've named this jobs.py in the apps root directory. Django RQ is an example. I don't know what that means. He didn't provide a link. By doing this, you're closing the door to apps doing this way. I have to downgrade, given that Django RQ is part of my product. I don't know what's in Django RQ. Maybe it has a jobs package. Let's close the loop. Maybe I can make this guy happy after understanding what he meant for a year. So we've got Django RQ. Aha, it has a jobs module. So, okay. I can both show how to correct this for my context, but we can also perhaps just as a kind of a fun side thing to do, and to correct my mistake, we can go fix this for the actual project. So first, let's fix this for my context. The first thing I want to do is come over here and do a make directory. And say journal entries, and then here I want to make a jobs directory. And then I want to create a package out of that for journal, entry, jobs, and then add the init.py. And then I want to move journal, entries, jobs.py into journal, entries, jobs. Okay, so at that point, jobs is now a directory with a path package instead of a module. So if we go back to our management command and run the list, we should actually get the answer this time. Maybe not. Well, we're getting a different error now. Job module has no attribute job. It has to be called job? No, surely not. It has to be called job. Okay. Well, that helps with the naming. And that probably explains why I put it in its own file. If it has to be called job. It's almost like a management command in that a management command is looking for a thing that says command. Whoops. Wrong file. This is now an extra one. I really moved it, so I just created a copy. Let's delete this. Come over here. I want to rename this to jobs is a terrible name. So let's rename it to send mail. And then inside of here, we can get rid of the send mail job. We still have the jobs test. And so the way I'm going to show that it's for this particular job is this via this attribute. But we now need to change the import to be send mail. And then we want to import job as send mail job. I'll restart the LSP because it's not happy about the path. So that test should still pass. This should be happy that it found job. Okay. And then we can now go and delete these print things that I added because they don't belong there. So, okay. What should be... Let's leave the print. Let's do this for... I want to print out... I want to print out what that path is. I don't remember what that attribute is supposed to be. Let's do path. Because if we're going to go back and fix this in a second, what was I trying to get out of here? So it's printing out that directory. Okay, cool. And then we can recreate this problem by creating a jobs module above this, which we'll do. Find the job module. Find the directory path to a job module. Find the directory path to a job module. If it is the module, you don't want the path above it, do you? I can understand how this starts to get it a little weird. Because it could be, if the job module is jobs.py, then the directory path to the job module is the app above it, right? Entries. But is that going to work with where this is called? So for name in find jobs of the path, find jobs starts, if not, starts with underscore. Okay, it's going to start looking for jobs inside of here. Looking through all the Python stuff. Okay, maybe that's fine. I think we can try and fix this. But I want to know if we've got the jobs module version of this, how do we get the name above it? So sketching out the code, what would this look like? So if we have the module, we would do a has adder lookup on it. We would give it the module, and we would give it the we want to look for a path. So this is the version that's a package. So here, jobs is a package. And then we want to return that in the scenario. Otherwise, jobs is a module is the else case where we want to return like module what would this be? File. This would be file, and then you want to do that doesn't get you the directory though. So is OS already imported? Yeah. So os.path.dirname. So that should get you the directory of the file above, which is kind of what this thing's asking for. Find the directory path to a job module. I think that's right. So let's see if our little scenario works. I might just go up write an issue about this and then fix it later. I don't know if it's worth fixing on stream. This is essentially the code though. So if we copy journal entries jobs, send email to journal entries jobs, nope, just jobs.py, then I think that manage command will be broken again. Oh, it might not be broken because I fixed it. That would be proof positive that I fixed it. Let's see. How about if I comment this out, change that line, and write this out? Is it broken? No, I didn't quite recreate the scenario. So let's move, for the sake of the test, let's move journal entries jobs.py, because I think it's getting confused between having the package there and then having the module there. So let's move it to, just for the moment, accounts. Now if we do this, it should fail. Okay, so we've got it failing again. That's good. A good reproduction. And then if we go return those things and write the change out again, let's see if I got it right. Has no attribute path. Okay, didn't I just? Has attribute path. Why did it come into this line? Find job module 84. 84. Oh. Ah, my print is what's killing me now. Oh, boo. Okay, I think we'll have to give up on this path of. Oh, it's not. There's some other assumptions that are built in here. Yeah. So it thinks it's actually looking for a package. It wants this to be a package. Jeffrey, yes, this is, well, it's Vim, sort of. It's Neo Vim. So mostly Vim. It's using, But NeoVim is like it tries to do everything that Vim does, but is written with a mostly different code base. They do some interesting integration with the original Vim code base to make sure that things are as compatible as possible. But then they do some diverging things with like scripting with Lua as the extension language for NeoVim. So, all right, I think I got to give up on this path of inquiry, because this is expecting this to be a package path, which means that whatever is using this, the output of this thing, is making some erroneous assumptions about it. Jeffrey, for your sake, if you want, here, let me get you quickly a link that might be useful, that others have found useful. So I have my dot files, which is all my configuration files for my editor setup over here. And that includes my NeoVim configuration, which I took quite a lot of time, as you can see, documenting all of my plugins, what they're used for, what my configuration settings are, and so on. Hopefully that helps you, especially if you're new to Vim. There's a lot going on in there. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's overwhelming, but yeah, that's what's going on. So maybe the correct thing to do is say, it might be to say that it doesn't support jobs.py. So if you don't have a path, don't do anything. But it's always expecting a string return. So I don't know, previously was it expecting this to work every time? I don't know. I'm getting too wrapped up in this. I think as part of it is because I feel a little bad that I broke that guy's workflow. Just trying to fix a deprecation warning. So let's get rid of this for now. At least I have a better understanding of the problem. Whoops. We'll save, we'll undo that and save it as it was. We will get rid of this journal accounts jobs because we don't need it. And now we have everything. We've got our send. We've got everything set up according to how this system wants to set it up. And we're finally able to look at that list and not ignore the warning. That was a long detour, but show what it actually is doing. So it gives you a what is this? Where does it come from? Where's the app that found it? What's the name of the job? And then what's the frequency at which it runs? So if we wanted to try this out, we can come over here and let's say print, look Ma, I am running. So we've got that, and then we could run the jobs. There are multiple ways that we could run it, but if I said, well, I'm going to try running all of this. It's probably going to run all 3 of these jobs because they're all listed as daily. So if I say run jobs daily, you see it prints it out. So I'm sure it ran all the others too. In fact, there's probably a verbose flag. If we give this a -v, is it going to... nope. Invalid int value? Okay, I see. How about 2? Here we go. So it tells you what it's doing. The daily is saying run everything that looks like a daily job. So it ran this cache cleanup command, this daily cleanup, which will be fine. It's actually a good thing. We'll be using some session stuff that'll be as a database back session, so it's good to have that cleaned up. Because eventually I want to be running this as manage run jobs daily as the way to send emails. And we'll, like I said, we'll hook that into the scheduler with Roku that will run that daily for us. At that future state where I hook it up and make a preference for what hour of the day you would like to send it, I will switch the cron schedule from daily to hourly and switch the job to an hourly job from a daily job. and then it would run accordingly. But again, that's a down the road change that we can do to make it a little bit more flexible. So this is the basic mechanisms of how is this thing going to run. I think we're finally ready to like do the guts of this command. So I'm not going to add a documentation string because we've already documented it with the help up here, but we do have this over here. So we want a user account. So let's say user factory. And by default, that's going to be trialing. But we need to bring in that factory. So from journal accounts, tests, factories, import user factory. Okay. And now we've got user factory, but it's not accessed. So that should give us a user to look up, or an account to look up. So I want to get, let's walk through this. I don't want to pay any attention to the schedule right now because we're not doing any tracking. We're just going to assume that if you get called, send an email. That could go badly if I called this multiple times, but when we set it up with the right schedule, that shouldn't be the problem. We want all accounts that are active. So let's bring in the appropriate model of from journal dot accounts dot models import account. And here we're going to want to go over every active account. Now I think we need to make a modification in order to do the right filtering. So let's go back to our accounts models file. Whoops. And we need to define, as I had earlier, the active statuses. So right here as attributes, I'm going to say active statuses, because there's more than one thing that we want to send an email for. And that's going to be, I think, is it a list or a tuple? Count models. I think it can be, yeah, let's make it a tuple. So we have active statuses. It'll be a tuple, and it's going to be status trialing. We could put this in a linear. This might look better. Status trialing, status active, and status exempt are the three that we want. Do I like it? Let's see. This is one way to view it. Let's see how it will look if it's all in one line. Okay, that feels a little better. A little tighter this time. So now we have that over there. It's hanging off the account model. So there's a couple of ways I can do this. I can either, we can either make a direct filter call, or we can say, we can put a query manager on here, custom query manager. I think that's, custom manager, where we can attach the methods that we want. Let's do that. Because that's going to give us a pattern where we can do a method call instead of writing out the specific filter details, which might change in the future. So we'll say class account manager. And this will be a models manager. Michael, let me read your comment here. Curious, how is this Django extension different from something like celery with Redis or Rabbit? Ah, okay. Yeah, the key. Well, you got another comment. Heroku has a package, Redbeat, that allows you to create schedules without restarting the scheduler. I'm not familiar with that. Redbeat. Roku Redbeat. The biggest difference. Maybe not the biggest, but sorry, I'm reading this a little bit. Celery Beat Scheduler. So the Celery Scheduler is it's a low-tech way of doing background work. It is a good fit for when you know that you just need to do something at some cadence. That it fits well for that mode, and that's why it fits well for this. Like, I want to set something daily or hourly. Even hourly is okay. Like, it's just a regular cadence. Doesn't really matter in that hour what exact minute is, as long as it happens hourly. Something like Celery, which I've used professionally in a couple of jobs, is a good tool, but it's the idea that there's a background worker that is always running and ready to receive whatever tasks might be thrown at it. So a good example is when you're making an application and you want a web page to go as fast as possible, but maybe it needs to do some work with a third-party API. Maybe it needs to send an email to somebody, like not in the same kind of context that we're talking about, but so that's maybe a bad example, but something that's going to take a while. Maybe it needs to make a PDF that is known to be big. And perhaps, I even tried this with my homeschool app. I tried to make a page where I would call the page and have it generate a PDF during that processing time, and then immediately return the PDF back to the user. This is a great example, actually. That process of doing that turned out to be too slow. The PDF I was trying to make was too big. It just had too much work that it had to do, and Heroku has a hard timeout on requests at 30 seconds. So it didn't fit in the 30-second window, and therefore the page just blew up on my users, which was a bad experience. Not only that, it was slow, even though I told them it would be slow. So with a system like Celery, what you can do instead is you can have this background worker running and always listening, and in your HTML view page, you say, I'm going to generate a PDF for you, but it's going to take a while, come back a little bit later. And so the processing will take a task and queue it up for Celery, and then Celery receives it and processes it. So in that scenario, Celery is like active and ready to do the work. The difference with this flow with this regular cadence is like nothing is running. It's completely off, so it's lowest cost possible to me. It wakes up, does some work, goes back to sleep. Ironically, even with the PDF example that I just talked about, I didn't use Celery for that. I ended up doing the Heroku scheduler. I put it on hourly, and I said, this is something that happens infrequently, so we're going to do our best. We're going to generate your PDF within the hour. I told that to my customers up front, so they click the button, they come back later, they get their PDF report. But if you need something faster than that, you need something that is going to take a little bit of time, more time than you want the user's web page to experience, which should be less than 500 milliseconds. That's not even a good page. It really ideal that for that instantaneous is, I believe, like perception is like 200 milliseconds. So that would be the best amount of time. So if you want to get to that level of speed, you have to move off and have this kind of active setup where anything that's going to take a long time gets pushed off to a different system. So I don't think I need a different kind of scheduler right now with the kind of work that I want to do. But if we found that there are things that are just taking too long, but we needed it to be a quick response rather than a delay of an hour, then I would look at something like this. I don't know that I would use Celery. Celery is actually quite a lot to set up and to do reliably anyway. But I've thought about, there's like other ones out there. There's RQ, actually the one we just saw the person linked to in that issue. And then Huey is one that I've looked at. Looks pretty simple. It's kind of Celery-like, has the ability to execute tasks and is backed by Redis, but it's just a different code base. So hopefully that answers your question, Michael. Jeffrey, what is the Django scheduler you are using that you're talking about? It's not a Django thing. It's actually a Heroku thing. So it's the Heroku scheduler. And let's go take a peek at it really quickly here. So you can see it's a free add-on, and it's essentially, I can show you the Heroku setup. I'm not ready to like do that today, but you set up your app and you go to this scheduler section, and it's really just a configuration page. It says like, when do you want to run something, and what's the thing you want to run. So we'll give it daily. And then the command we'll give it is the one that you just saw, of manage run jobs without the verbosity thing. This one right here, manage run jobs daily. So that's how I'm going to run the scheduler. It's a glorified web user interface for cron, if you're familiar with cron on the command line. Okay. All right, we've got. So all right, yeah, I was going to do an account manager for a custom method. I think we're ready for that. So a manager is the way that you can interact with the Django ORM. It's the way that you get the instances, the records, the database rows out of that. And by default, there is a manager that's attached to every model. That is when you get, mymodel.objects, or in this case with this code that we're looking at, account.objects. That objects, that's the manager. So you can create a custom manager and override that class attribute, which is what we're going to do here. So I'm going to, for the moment, I'm just going to say pass, and then we can set the manager. I'm trying to figure out where I want to put this. I like having kind of constants up here and then fields. Manager is one of the least interesting aspects of this. So let's put this at the bottom. So we'll say objects, and then we'll do account manager, like that. So now we've replaced our built-in manager with this accounts manager. And if you go look at the model implementation, I'm pretty sure the built-in manager is just a models.manager, something to that effect. Jeffrey, you're right. I did not get put off by the pricing change. I find that Heroku is such an easy tool to deploy that if I know if I'm going to have to be paying for something anyway, that I might as well use a tool that is good and I'm willing to put down some money for. Okay, so now we've got our custom manager, and I want a method to exist on it. So I want to make a method that I'm going to call active. And the active method is just going to wrap up the filter call to get us the right accounts that we want. So it's going to return something that will return a query set. I'm going to call it active. And so it takes a self attribute because it is a method. And we want to get the query set. So we'll call this QS for this. And we'll say managers have a method on them called get query set, I believe. Like so, which gives you a query set that you can use. That's query set goes well with the ORM, or it's a critical part of it. And then in the end, what we're going to do is we want to query and apply a filter. And this is where we want to set our status to be the active statuses. So the query, the manager also has access to the model, I think. I want to say it's just as model, which is where we have our status field as a reminder. So we can say something like model active statuses. I realize that there's a mistake in this code so far that I can see. We'll go back to that in a second. So we can say status in self model active statuses. I think that's the code that we need. If it's not, we'll go fix it. So now I should be able to go over here and say accounts, and we can do account.objects.active. And for the sake of it, we'll do for account in accounts. We're going to do more with this in a moment, and we'll loop on this print statement. We're not using that yet. We might need to switch this to a false assertion so that we can start seeing standard output. If I run this test now, we get look ma, I'm running, and that's because we have the user factory here. If we do this again, now we have 2 users. We should see that twice. Oh, but we got a failed constraint. Ooh, interesting. Interesting. Why? What was? Hold on. Let's run it again. What was it failing on? It's using the same username. Okay. It must be, the username must be like empty. All right, so we got to go make our user factory better. Let's see if we fix that over here. Maybe save ourselves some time. User factory. Nope, that's in a different users factories. Yeah. All right. I must have experienced the exact same problem over there. So we need to go to accounts, factories, and down here we can now specify a unique username using the sequence. The sequence is basically saying every time this gets called, create a user, and this n value from this lambda is going to be incremented each time. That's the sequence aspect of this. So that should be enough to get us the uniqueness qualities that will make this test not explode in our faces. Okay, so really what I was after is, you see where it says look ma, I am running twice, means that both of these are active, so they're both trialing. I'm curious now, so we set this as a 1-to-1 field, and I'm curious if Factory Boy is smart enough if I can set the account status this way to be, what if I just set it to 4? Is that going to work? No. Rats. I was hoping that it would go to the 1-to-1 field. But this makes sense, because if you think about it, the Factory Boy factory doesn't know that I hooked up the signal, so it doesn't know about account yet. Receive deep context for unknown fields. It only knows about username. Okay, so I think the way we would have to do this is set something that is not an active state, would be something like this, where we now have the user, and we can go user account status equal user account status canceled, and then user account. I don't like this. This feels wrong. Okay, it felt wrong, but the code is technically correct. But you see here that I'm essentially like testing the active filter right now. I probably should have an explicit test for this, which is going to do the things that I was just showing, so that we can get approved of the count. In fact, let's do that too. We're not going to need it for this scenario. We want to test that the help box happens, and so I don't want this send test checking that active is working. There should be a different test that checks that active works. The active check should be delegated to a different kind of file. So Let's go to accounts, test models, and let's say this is we could have a separate manager class, but they feel so tied to the account model that I don't want to. So let's say test active. Also realizing that I forgot the doc string on this other one, so let's put that in now. And the test that we have should only return active states. So the active manager method returns active accounts. We'll use the account factory here. We don't actually need the user instance so we can save ourselves some trouble. So let's do, we have account factory. If I want to get this right, there are 3 different accounts that we want. So we want to have, I'll call this one the trialing account and set the status equal to, oh boo, the account factory I think has access to the model. Meta, no it doesn't because I gave it a string version of the model. Oh man. Okay. Account status dot trialing. And we need to import that model. So from journal accounts models import account. So then we're going to have, I'm going to do one for every single status type that we have here to make sure that the account is checking against the right set. We're going to have 5 of these, and we want active, we want exempt. So those are the 3 that we want to see. And then I don't need the return values, but we do want to fix all these states. So this will be canceled. This will be trial expired. This will be active. And this will be exempt. So now we've got 5 different kinds of accounts. And we want to say accounts and do, let's put them in a set and do account dot objects dot active. You'll see why I'm putting them in a set in a second. And then we want to assert that the actual accounts is equal to the expected, which would be trialing, active, and exempt. Okay, that's the test. This should work, and it does. And if we go over here, and if I comment it out, well, I can't because it's one line. There's a downside I didn't consider. If I take this out for a moment and run the test again, it's going to fail because one of them's not in there. So I'm happy with this test. The reason I used a set, in case you're wondering about that, is that the ORM, a query set does not guarantee ordering. Well, is that true? I guess it guarantees it by ID. So the fact that I ordered them in this order is when I created them. Yeah, I could have used a list in this context. I take that back. And that may actually be simpler to read and not have to determine why did I use a set. But there are times where that ordering is not as guaranteed to be there. And for those scenarios, if you know that all of the items in whatever that collection is are going to be unique, doing assertions on sets makes it so that you don't run into ordering bugs. I've seen examples where either I have written it or I've seen coworkers write it, where the order comes back in a jumbled way, and an assertion that they wrote assumed the certain ordering, and it failed. The test fails and is brittle because of that. I don't think that matters in this case, though. Oh, maybe I'm wrong. I'm already proven myself wrong. So, did I save it over here? I saved this. So let's bring back the set stuff, because apparently I was wrong. Yeah, all right. Well, goes to show. Sometimes you need sets. I don't really want to put, let's do like with like. So let's leave this as this is a query set object. And the assertion would fail here because it's going to compare a query set to a set, and those aren't the same thing. So by wrapping the results here with a set, we have them, it kind of shows that we're comparing the same types at the same time. So this is always going to be a query set rather than previously we had it on the right-hand side, so it's going to be a set here. Doesn't really matter, just makes me feel a little better. Okay, now that we have that, we should probably document this. Get all the active accounts. And we can come down here and get rid of this, because we don't need to prove that canceled will not receive emails. Mostly. Guess there's an aspect of, even though we know that active is working, I could be proving out that I'm using active. So there's an argument to say that, yeah, actually we should put canceled in there. I'm not going to. I can use my eyeballs here to convince myself that I'm only using the active stuff, and I know that I tested that. Okay, so we're now here. We want to see an email get to the outbox. Let's go look at Django, PyTest Django again. And you'll see some stuff here. There's this last fixture. So we have a clean email outbox to which Django generated emails are sent. So here's the core of this. We need to send an email. And then we want to see something show up in this mail outbox. And then we can test that all these attributes. We can test the user's email address that they provided here. We can test that it's got the right subject that we expect. And so on. Let's do that. So the first thing I want to do is get back to looking at just this jobs area. And we can bring in that fixture by calling mail outbox. And I want to say email is an attribute. Ooh, is the email thing attached to the user, or is it attached to something else because of the system we're using? Let's go look. Let's go look at the dev server. I don't remember. 5,000. Let's go to the admin. So we've got our users, but the challenge is I created this with the super user command, although these were not. These were created by doing the sign up process. So they have email address here attached to user. We also have over here the email address model that also comes with Django all off. And these are the ones that are verified, but I think I feel comfortable that if it's attached to both user, I don't know that we need to come back over here and look for this. This might be something that we have to consider more in the future if we allow for multiple emails, but that's a way down the road feature. So I would expect that when we look at the mail outbox and look at the item in there, we will find an email address and it needs to match up with the user thing here. So first thing that we need to assert, we want to assert that the length of the mail outbox is equal to 1. We also need to verify something about our testing settings. I think there's a critical link here. Yeah, there's this local memory email backend. I think we looked at this before. Django locmem email backend. Locmem. Django's test runner automatically uses this backend. The outbox attribute is created when the first message is sent. So I think that the fixture that we're using probably depends upon this outbox attribute. It's essentially, I mean, local memory, it is what it says. Every time you send an email, rather than attempting to send over SMTP or any other protocol that we might use, you would instead just store it in memory. And then it should get cleared out between each test. So this test should now fail. Let's get rid of that spacing. So we've got our arrange, act, and then assert. And then we need to assert details about the email here. And I want to go back and reference the job or the issue again for a second. Didn't put any details. Okay. We need to define our own success criteria here because I don't know that I would get kind of worn out. And I think it might be time to wind stuff down. So what do we need? I will finish the follow through on at least this main portion of the job. So we need to send email via a job. But the reason I don't know that I'm going to do all of this is because we want to incorporate a subject that includes today's date. There's some thought I want to put into that. It's not obvious. I don't know. I don't think it has to be parsable. I think we'll be able to get that from the SendGrid API, but in case it does have to be parsable, we have to be careful with that. And set up the template body of the email. So I want to put some thought, like if this is because basically what we're talking about is the whole application is going to be delivered through email. So this email is really important to get right. It needs to be crisp. The language needs to be clear. The guidance needs to be clear. It needs to look professional enough that people would be happy to see it in their inbox every day. I don't want anything about this to feel cheap. So I don't want to rush it, now that we're 2 hours into a stream here. So I think I just basically want to get this first bullet done. Because I didn't anticipate all of this stuff around accounts that we did. So that was my game plan, was to get way farther with email, but there was some pre-setup that was not considered. So let's plan to get this, prove that this is getting sent, and then we can wrap up for the evening from there. So this test should be failing. It's not getting anything. We want to send mail, and if we look back at the fixture example, there's this mail API that comes with Django. I don't know if we'll be using this long term because we might have a more complex message that we want to send. I think this is kind of for text emails. defined in here. Send mail. Here's send mail. You can see, like, and it's conceivable that we could be doing a render right here of a template and just be putting in the whole body, but it doesn't feel right, because there's message, but there's also HTML message. We want both a text message and we want a nicer message. And the presence of the HTML message will turn this into a multi-part email. It's just going to add layers to this. So I think this evening, I mostly just want to make sure that we're calling send mail, that we've got the testing configuration work, that we're kind of confident that this will use the appropriate API. The nice part about this is, notice what we've not done. None of this is going to require us to directly call SendGrid. We're using Django's abstraction, the interface that they put in place, to send email, and then the under the cover stuff is delegated to a backend. And that's what Django AnyMail, which we didn't get to today, we're going to get to that next week. That's what this thing does. It provides a backend. Just like we have the local memory backend for testing, we can swap out a real backend with the real configuration stuff and connect it to SendGrid over that. But again, that'll be for a later time. So I think for now, what I want to do is I do want to assert that we're sending it to the right location. So let's say we'll get the mail out of the mail out box, and I'm gonna assume there's just one of them because we're only sending to a single user. And then we want to assert, the final thing we want to assert is that the mail email, was it email address or email? I think it's just email. Was it that showed up over here? Nope, I'm wrong. The to field. Wow, I was way off. So the mail to field is equal to the user's email address. That's like, if we get this far, that's success for the day. So we can go to here and we can say from Django core, core import mail, right? That's where it is. Yep. And then down here we can say mail, send mail, and it takes the subject message from and the recipient list. Oh, that's kind of annoying. Let's go read up on that API. Forgot. Each member, okay, this is something we definitely don't want to send. You wouldn't call this one time with all the accounts as the recipients, because that would be like sending everybody on the to line. You'd see one person's journal post sent to every customer. So recipient list should be a list of one to the individual account, and we'll just call it in a loop. And again, since this will be running in a background task, if that's slow, it doesn't become a problem until it's so slow that if we're running hourly and the hourly job rolls over to the next hour. And even then, it wouldn't matter that much if the configuration kind of spread people out. So problems for future. So we need and for now I'm like gonna put in as placeholders this replace this subject. And then replace. This is all, and these get positional too, which is after I want to get in at least the first 4 because those are positional arguments, and then we need to put in also the HTML message as a thing. So replace this message. The from email is next. So who is this from email? I don't know yet. That needs to be a configuration that we'll set. We got to go figure that out. it needs to be something that we can do a reply to on. It can't just be like a no reply. That's something different from my other app. So this is an area where I will be learning. So that's will be critical to set properly. And we have recipient list. In fact, all of these things, we can do these with keyword arguments. Let's just call it out that way. So this is the subject. This is the message. And if we do this all in the keyword arguments, we can order these in however we want. This is the from email. We have the recipient list of account. Ooh, we can go backwards, right? Account is a one-to-one field, so we should be able to do this reverse too. So account.user.email, that should work. So yeah, I'll leave that for a moment that way. And then I think that's all of those things. And then we also want the HTML message, which we can put here now because we've given up on the positional ordering by making sure that everything is a keyword argument. So replace this HTML message. And then as one optimization that we'll probably need, since we're going to be pulling the user every time in a loop, we can do a select related on the user. That should work. Okay. Finally, we can get rid of that. Now, if we run this test, what happens? Oh, boo. So why is our mail outbox not have something in it? Sad. All right, let's go check out over here. Again, we're back in the homeschool app. Let's see if we used mail outbox anywhere. Nope. Did I use outbox? I know I tested something with email. Where did it go? Could have sworn that I had a test that tested some kind of email sending. Send referrals. Do I not have any tests or send referrals? I don't. Sorry, y'all. I thought this would have gone smoothly. Surprised that this did not work. Maybe it's a different email backend that it expects for that. Forms. Local memory. Well, that was a surprise. So, because we're definitely called it. Did I save it? I didn't. Hello, good to see you as well. Thank you for returning back. I still wrestle with your Russian name there, but I'm glad you're here. I'll try running this again. No. What's going on? We've got the mail out box. Let's go look at that code. Still have this code up over here. Nope, this is a different package. So this is PyTest Django. And this is going to be a fixture in here. So fixtures, mail outbox. What? Okay. Mail There it is. It's in plugin. Don't know why. Mail. All right, let's read this interesting comment here. Ensure that Django is loaded and has its testing environment set up. It is a little dodgy that this is an auto-use fixture. Okay. Perhaps an email fixture should be requested in order to be able to use the Django email machinery, just like you need to request. Well, you did set that up, so this is maybe a really old comment. Let's keep going. Django auto clear mailbox, mail outbox, patch DNS. What? Okay, here it is. It's returning the mail. Okay, there's nothing shocking here then. There's it's the mail outbox attribute. So why did you not get definitely called send mail? What's the deal? Right? This is we should be able to print sent email or sent mail, and that should show up in the failure because this was the next thing. Thank you, Jeffrey. I knew I was hesitating to say it. Kirill Lobanov. Welcome, Kirill. Send mail. So it definitely calls send email, right? There's no exception that's happening here. So why did that not get stored in the outbox? Because this outbox is, as we could see, doing Django core import mail, and the mail outbox should be there. All right, how about if we do, what if we try and print, we just called it, what if we try and print the outbox now from here? What's this going to be? Empty list. Boo. What happened? All right. Why did the outbox not get called? Time to look at the Django code. So let's keep going. Now we're really getting to it, y'all. So we're now in the Django code, and we want to go into core mail. See if outbox is in here. Outbox is not in here. Let's change our directory. Let's go up a directory and into Django. And now let's search for outbox. So it's in the local memory. All right, it's exactly where I thought it would be. In the local memory backend. So what's going on? We've got outbox is set. Send messages. Okay. Shouldn't send message call send messages? Or send mail call send messages? I don't think there's a thing that we have to do to trigger the actual sending. So what calls send messages? Let's go to the base. Send. Subclass must least overwrite send messages. Yep, not surprising. Send messages. Send one or more email objects. Okay, and we should be able to go up to here. Send mail. All right. So here's the API that we called just now. It calls mail.send, which is an email alternatives, and then something in here. Where's this? This is an email alternatives. And oh gosh, it is like turtles all the way down. Email message. Just let me, okay. Oh, did I not set recipients? Maybe that's what it's triggering on. Well, there's an email right there. Recipients, don't bother creating the network connection if there's nobody to send to. So is that what happened? Because I would think if we got to send messages, it's going to get the local memory outbox. So let's find out who is the email. So maybe the code is being like, you didn't actually send it to anybody. Which could be a reason for me to have to go improve the factory to actually put some kind of fake emails in there. So let's print the account user email. Let's see what's coming back out of there. Aha, it's empty. All right, caught the culprit. Let's go put an email into the factory. So we want to go back to the accounts factories. Come to the user factory and set the email. Actually, let's just copy this sequence thing. And I want really deterministic. I want to know, like, if you're user 1, you have email at somewhere, you know, something like that. So let's say email. Actually, let's put it above username, and then do a sequence where it's user n at testing.com. So now our factory should be producing instances that are a lot more believable. Great, there we go. So we've gotten past the mail outbox problem. So that was our problem. So we didn't have a real recipient. So it wasn't anything related to the testing code. All of that stuff worked. The problem was with my code. So we're almost done. We need to fix this by acknowledging that the to is a list. It's the recipient list. That should fix this code. Great. All right, I think that puts us at the end for where we want to be for this. The other things that we need to do that will be later. Turn to our list. We've got this piece done. We'll send that email. We need to fix the subject and the template, so we can do that next time of improving what actually goes in as the inputs to these things. We also need to, I guess, look at sending or fixing the from email. So let's add that as an item to fix on here. Set the from email. That'll be another thing to investigate. That's going to require some research with SendGrid of how that's going to work, of who we're supposed to send to. I don't know how the inbound stuff is supposed to work. That's something we need to look at. So let's leave ourselves some notes for next time to make sure we assert on all the right things. So we want to assert, assert subject, essentially all these other fields that we don't have. Assert message, and assert HTML message, and the from email. Okay, puts us in the good position that if we get this, then we'll be positioned to actually configure email. And at that point, we should be in a good spot of doing, like, really, that's the bulk of the user interface from the day-to-day experience with the app. Is all through this one little job, which is kind of amazing. So it's going to require some templates to get us there, though. Let's make sure that everything's working properly. Let's run all our, let's run our tests, make sure we have coverage on all the stuff before we close up. Still have 100% coverage, that's great. And let's check out the diff and before we commit, see what we did as a kind of last minute review, and then we'll call it an evening. So we've got this new account manager that has this active method on it to get all of the active accounts, which we set as a constant of active statuses, and set the objects, the manager class on there. Improve that factory there, and updated that test, or updated to include a second test to actually check out that active method. Then getting a little lower here, we get to the job, which, I mean, I kind of love in the end that our initial logic for what we're sending out is as simple as you could possibly think. Like, we're getting all the active accounts and we're looping over them. Send you an email, send you an email. There's going to be a little bit more that's going to go into that. The actual creation of this message is going to be a little bit interesting because we need the body of that email is, remember, part of this is sending a prompt of, well, let me get one of your past entries as something that to remind you of your day and actually bring you a little bit of joy. Like that's the engaging part of this experience, is that you get this little reminder of things you've said in the past about how your life was going. So getting and crafting that message, an HTML message, will actually require a little bit of effort in that regard. But so this is not the entirety of this function. Once we replace those things, it'll be a little bit more complexity than that. And then we've got the test that is all of that. So doesn't look like a lot of code, but I think we got a lot done here. A lot of another core model set up. We've got the migration for it. We've got all that. And then we set up a lot of this test. So let's add this stuff. Go ahead and commit this. No things to complain at us here. So we'll say add the email sending core. And that's for, what was it, like number 7 or something? Nope, even earlier than that, number 4. All right, let's push that up. That should be, you want to go review that code later on your own, you're welcome to. That's going to do it for me this evening. I just want to give you a reminder that you can give me a like or a thumbs up comment on the video if you had some questions about something you didn't understand. Happy to go back and try and answer that offline. I have a Discord if you want to find that. Let's see, do I still, I don't remember if I kept the link on my website. There's ways to get in, I didn't. Or it's up here. So if you're looking to join a Discord that is talking about SaaS stuff, there's a small community there. This is a link to invite yourself to that. Happy to chat with you. You know, I'm not always on, so the response might be a little delayed, but that's okay. You can also support me on Patreon or YouTube. There are ways to subscribe as members on either of those platforms. And obviously, at Matt Lehman, you found me here this evening streaming, so I assume you know where you're there. But on Patreon, I am MB Lehman, so you can find that on my main website, as you can see here too. So that's going to do it for the evening. Thank you all for joining in. Appreciate the conversation, and hopefully you learned something this evening. And I think I will be streaming again next week. So next week we'll continue on this mail stuff and hopefully crank that out. Have a good evening. Take care.